So it's really wonderful to be here with you. The practice of meditation has been a profound part of my life uh, for those many years, and yoga was before that. In fact, it was yoga that led to meditation. And now I do both of them. And I know that many of you are here because you found meditation helpful. So we have something in common already. This curiosity and interest and and perhaps the experience of seeing the benefits of meditation practice. So this evening we are actually going to meditate. As you know, I'm keen on actually practicing when I present, so we will do that first, and we're going to include the topic of courage in the guidance that we give. So find yourself in a comfortable position that is conducive to a sense of being grounded, awake, and relaxed. So maybe just take a deep breath. With the theme of courage, it's particularly important to feel grounded. And one way to do that is to notice contact with the supports underneath us. So starting by feeling the floor underneath our feet. And if you're having any trouble feeling that, you can even press down a little bit to increase your awareness of that contact. And then feeling our seats supporting, our chairs supporting our thighs and our buttocks. And again, maybe for this topic of courage, maybe just a little bit of pressure, back pressure into the chair to emphasize strength. And that's just a momentary effort, and then letting it go. And then if your back is against the chair, I would encourage you to move it a little bit forward so that you can feel your own strength in your spine. So feeling the uprightness in your spine. Going from your tailbone right up to the junction of the upper spine with the skull. And with this uprightness comes a sense of dignity, your own dignity, your own confidence. And then including the sensation of the hands on the thighs or in your lap. And then looking at your own face. And sensing your self-respect. As it shows up in your face. I respect myself. And then feeling the body as a whole. And for the quality of courage, it's helpful to emphasize here and now presence. We are here now, ready to meet whatever arises in our meditation. And let's take 3 a little bit slower and longer breaths that go right down to the belly. When you have to face a difficult situation, you need oxygen. So you need to be able to breathe deeply, feel grounded, and it's also helpful to remain relaxed. So in the next 3 breaths, pay attention to the out breath. We're strong and relaxed. And then noticing the mind, the quality of the mind, alert, present, ready to respond, and peaceful. The more peaceful we can be in a difficult situation, the more wisdom is available. And now that you've established helpful conditions in your body, breath, and mind, choose an anchor as you normally do, whatever works for you. For many people, it's the breath, some it's the body, or a combination. And spend the next few minutes just paying attention to your anchor. If you find you are getting distracted, you can add counting your breaths. I would suggest up to 5, and then starting over. When the mind starts to settle, you can allow your attention to move and take in whatever is happening. Include all of your experiences, your body sensations, your emotions, thoughts and images, and just pay close attention. And you may want to consider warming up the meditation with a drop of friendliness, including friendliness in your attitude towards your experience, the warmth of your heart. Every once in a while, check in with your body. If there's any unnecessary tension that's crept in, just pay kind attention and relax that area. Oh, just here.
Yeah. Oh, that was meditating.
So for the rest of us, just pay attention to the energy that generated in our mind. It's a shock. There's a technique in Zen where you go pay. So we just had a pay from one of our members that shocked us. So let's see how our minds are now. And how are our hearts? And then grounding in the body again. Coming back down. And then as we come to the end of our meditation, bringing attention to our heart area and sensing into our own, each of us, natural courage. How does the heart respond when there's a challenge? One of the qualities that we all have is some aspect or amount of courage. Feel how courage shows up for you in your heart. It's the feeling that we can handle what's in front of us. And then dedicating our courage to those around us in the community here, sharing our courage. And then maybe choosing someone in your life, or it could be more than one person who you feel could benefit from you sharing your courage. And thanking yourself for the courage to continue to practice, to come to share your love of the practice with others, and know that this is of benefit to you and to everyone in your life. So in coming out of a meditation, it's helpful to do it slowly. Just take your time. Do what you need to do. One of the things that can be helpful is to look from one side to the other. Take in the whole room. I like to follow the edge, where the wall meets the ceiling. That seems to help my nervous system feel safe for some strange reason. I think I was told that by someone. That's a good technique. If you're outdoors, look at the horizon. So you look like you're okay. I wanted to check in with you. Any concerns? No bruises? No? Okay. I saw you napping and I thought, oh, it must be nice to have a little nap this time of night. But I didn't know it could lead to falling off your chair. Oh, there you go. Okay, so this topic of courage is of value to me. I'm working on my own courage. I have a certain amount of courage I brought into my life from, I remember it in kindergarten, kind of a drive that I had from a very young age. But as I've gotten older, I've recognized that courage was a mixture of unskillful sort of grasping at achievement, as well as just good quality courage. And so retirement has really brought me an opportunity to see that what I relied on as courage through achievement and also through contributing to the world, I needed new sources and a new understanding of courage. So not having that daily trip to the office and talking to and helping others and interacting with my colleagues has helped me see that there's other areas that I want to develop. And that's one of the reasons that I chose this topic. So what does courage mean? According to the Oxford Language Dictionary, it means the ability to do something that frightens one, or strength in the face of pain or grief. It's the quality of being ready and willing to face negative situations that involve danger or pain. So in all of these, there's some element of discomfort or a perceived sense of lack of safety. And so some of us have had experiences in our life which left us with the imprint of a lack of safety, and that can be buried underneath. And through the course of years of meditation practice, those experiences can resurface, and we need to find ways to be with the sense that we're not safe. So that's one of the purposes of working with courage, is so that when these uncomfortable feelings arise during meditation that may have been buried for a long time, we have what it takes to face into them. So I see courage as being on a continuum from an effortful courage, as we can imagine a warrior would need, so someone who's really charged up and ready to face possibly death through their actions, and what they're perceiving as being rightful actions, and a less effortful form of courage, which is more the courage of a wise sage who knows that it's not always helpful to charge into a situation. Sometimes it's better to be patient and kind and even silent as we face into difficulty. So we're going to discuss both of these types of courage this evening. I would say the less effortful courage for me is well described by the virtues of patience and kindness. So the more situations are not maybe so acutely dangerous, then we have more time for patience and kindness. And it's important to bring those into difficulties that are taking a long time to resolve. So let's begin by feeling the two types of courage in an embodied way. So I would invite you, if you feel comfortable doing it, to stand up, because warrior courage needs the whole body. So I'm going to push my hair back. Okay, I'm going to cut off the head yoga teacher. Okay, so imagining there's a big danger in front of you. It could be a grizzly bear, it could be an assailant, it could be you're a soldier and you're fighting for your to protect your tribe or your country. And how would your body need to be in that situation? What would you need in your body? And I like to close my eyes. So I'm going to close my eyes because then I can feel my body even more. And what would you need in your body if you had danger in front of you? And you needed to be ready to respond, but you also wanted to stay calm and still because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't want to react in a way that's not going to be helpful. And you know that being calm will help you make a wiser choice. So just feel your body and notice what happens when you ask it to serve you in this situation. And I notice for me that my feet kind of press into the floor. There's more flow of energy into my limbs. My core contracts and prepares my body. My breath gets a little bit deeper. My mind is ready, it's present, it's open, it's clear. I'm prepared. I'm standing my ground. And I'm going to be quiet now and just let you spend the next little while, maybe 30 seconds or so, just observing yourself without my words. Can you feel strong and calm? Okay, so now I invite you to sit down. And in the sitting position, we are going to explore this more feminine form of courage. Not that men can't have it and women can't be the more masculine form. We have both in all of us. So imagine you're facing an apparent danger. Someone in your life is acting in a way that's unskillful and you're finding it harmful, but you're not in like severe danger. It's just maybe something that doesn't feel like it's the right way things should be. You also care about this person. And you've come to realize that the biggest danger in the situation is for the person who keeps on doing the thing that's not helpful. That's actually harming them and harming you. And so you feel that you can relax a little more than maybe in the warrior situation, because you know that even though it is harmful to you, the biggest harm is for the person to keep on with the behavior. Behavior is not good for them. And what does your body want to do in this situation? You respect yourself and you don't want to allow yourself to become disturbed. You want to remain peaceful, calm, kind. But you also know that you need to stand up and say that this behavior is not okay with you. It needs to stop or it needs to change. What is present in your heart when you're facing into this kind of situation? How is your mind? So for myself, in facing this sort of situation, I found it helpful to remember that I am cultivating qualities that I would like to have, which include patience and kindness, kind of an unflinching kindness. That even though I may be disturbed by the behavior, I also want to take care of myself. And by taking care of myself, that means not allowing myself to act unskillfully or become upset by the situation. So why do we get into these troubles with ourselves and with others? The Buddhist tradition says that it's very normal for us to struggle. It's part of being a human being. And one of the ways of describing this truth is through what's called the eight worldly winds, that we prefer pleasure over pain, gain over loss, praise over blame, and status over disgrace. The experiences of pain, loss, blame, and our natural tendency to evaluate our worth according to what others think of us or what we think they think of us, these are all part of being a normal human being. So everyday life takes courage, because this is how we're put together, each one of us. We want gain, we don't want loss. We want praise, we don't want blame. We want praise and blame. I always miss one when I don't look at the notes. Gain and loss, praise and blame, and status and disgrace. We could almost feel our bodies react to each of those words. Yes, no, yes, no. This is just how we're put together. And then there's another couple of lists in Buddhism that help us. The first one in this description is the 5 hindrances, which many of you may have heard of, which are sensual desire, so wanting what's pleasant, not wanting what's unpleasant, and that could just be mild not wanting, right up to hostility and rage. Sloth and torpor, which is when we kind of check out, and sloth is the body and torpor is the mind. Restlessness and worry is when we're agitated, and then skeptical doubt is when we're confused. So how many of you have experienced some of these? Probably all of us. And you may have your favorite ones. In the Buddhist tradition, generally there's 3 personality types: the desire type, the aversive type, and the deluded type, which is the confused type, who is just kind of perplexed. And I found for myself, on the top layer was the desire, and underneath that was a fair quantity of ill will. So I've had to work hard over many years of practice. I have lots of experience with these qualities in the mind. And the good news is that the practice works slowly over time. Right, Bill? You agree? The next list I wanted to bring up is what's called the 5 powers. And these are qualities we all have, but we need to develop. They may be quite strong to begin with, or they may be just small. They are faith or confidence in our good self. Virya, which is effort, skillful effort, strong effort, which I'm equating to courage. Mindfulness, and then samadhi, it's called in Pali, or you could say concentration, where we have a collected mind. that's free of the hindrances, and then wisdom or discernment, which is where we know what to do and it has pretty good results. And these are what we're working to develop as we practice. And as we practice, the 5 powers become stronger and the hindrances become weaker. This takes many years of practice for most people. I was talking to my current meditation teacher, and she said she doesn't know anyone who's fully awakened. And this is within multiple teachers that she's trained with and worked with. So it's not like it's easy, but there are probably, they say there are some people who are fully awakened, but at least if we get a little bit more awake through our life, a little bit more free, that's our aim. So this strengthening side through the 5 powers is balanced by the calming or pacifying side of practice, which we usually more naturally associate. When I meditate, I want to get more relaxed. I want to feel some ease. I want to feel peaceful. And that, in case you start reading about it, is called shamatha. So shamatha is a very important thing to develop, because when we have a calm, peaceful mind, it's more possible to meet the challenges within us. And we also need this strengthening side that comes with the other qualities of 5 powers. So within the 5 powers this evening, I'm going to focus on faith and virya. They're the first 2. So faith, most of us probably grew up within one of the Abrahamic religions. So the religions where faith is more associated with just belief rather than the confirmed faith. Whereas in the Buddhist tradition, faith is something that you may start with as being just hoping that there's some help there within the Buddhist tradition, but eventually it definitely becomes confirmed by your practice. So you are here this evening because you have some faith. You wouldn't come unless you thought it might be helpful. So let's examine for each of us, why did we start practicing? Because we're seeking something, and it's often a combination of things, but it could be we want to understand ourselves better. We want to understand others better. We want to reduce our suffering. We want to feel happier than we currently feel. But something in us senses that this is truly a possibility, that there is a possibility. And maybe we are looking for a way or some answers. So again, we're going to do an experiential exercise, and just briefly closing your eyes and popping the question for yourself. Why did I come here this evening? What was my motivation in coming? And then ask yourself the question, through the time that you've been practicing meditation or exploring it, have you had any confirmation that it's helpful to you? And what kind of help have you had from it? So this second type of faith, which is what I asked the second question about, is when we study and practice for a while, we have experiences where we do notice some benefit from practice. Maybe we see more clearly, we understand ourselves more clearly, we feel calmer, we feel happier, we feel more open-hearted. We are able to make wiser choices, which have better results. We may feel more generous. We are able to stand up to challenges better. So when we have these experiences, that's called confirmed faith. So our faith in the practice actually deepens, we become more committed to it, and the benefits gradually increase because of that commitment. The third type of faith is unshakable faith, which is the faith that is unquestioned. There's no question about the practice being useful to you anymore. You just know deep in your bones that the practice is useful. You see it in those who practice with you. You feel it in yourself. All right, so that is faith. And then we have this very important topic of ethics. The foundations of our commitment to our practice is a commitment to ethical behavior. If we do things that don't line up with our inner sense of goodness, then our mind will be disturbed. And if we have a disturbed mind, then it will not be conducive to a peaceful meditation. So what is ethical behavior? Basically, it's avoiding harming ourselves and avoiding harming others. And within the Buddhist tradition, there are 5 major areas that we train in. And notice I say train. This is not about a commandment, it's about a training. So we are training to not kill, not steal, not engage in harmful sexual behavior, to be as truthful as possible, and to avoid intoxicants. And the teaching in Buddhism is that if we notice that we're acting unskillfully, we will be able to tell because we'll feel some kind of little shrinkage. It's called remorse. It does not feel good to keep doing this. I don't like how it feels. And this is an opportunity to celebrate that we care. When we feel remorse, it means we care. It's not an opportunity for self-flagellation or shame. It's an opportunity to really celebrate that we have a human heart that's responsive and we have some wisdom. And then say to ourselves, what do we have to learn here? What were we missing that caused us to engage in harmful behavior? And what can we do to course correct? We care about our well-being and the well-being of others. And we have the resource of our practice. Maybe we have teachers, maybe we have community, and we can look into it and understand ourselves more deeply. In the Buddhist tradition, one of the things that you can do is basically confession. So you tell someone who's further along on the path than you are that you've acted unskillfully, you seek guidance, and commit to a behavior change. So that is ethics. It's a very important role. There's also what's called the bliss of blamelessness, which is when we do act skillfully, the flip side, we feel very happy. We can celebrate when we've made a behavior change and say, hey, I did something that I feel really happy about. And don't miss that because we're so prone to noticing the difficulties and not paying that much attention to the good stuff. So when you do something differently than what you used to because you've noticed that that wasn't so good to do, then you can celebrate. I am growing, I am learning, and feel good about that. So the second power is the power of virya. I like the sound of the word, so that's why I keep saying it. It does mean courage. And this is having that quality like we had when we were standing as the warrior, to like really have strength and face into our tendencies that aren't so skillful. So this is our pleasure seeking, our gain seeking, our praise seeking, and our status seeking. Now, this does not mean there's anything wrong with having pleasure or gaining or getting praised or having high status. There's nothing wrong with any of those things. It's just when we attribute long-term happiness to having those things. And the trouble is that when we put those things first, we sometimes compromise our ethics. And then we don't feel so good. So it's that balance between, and we all have to face it. Life is not simple. We face it every day. How do I make this choice? This would give me a little bit more pleasure, but it would give that person a little less pleasure. Taking credit at work for something that you didn't really do as much as you're being praised for it when you should be sharing the credit with somebody else, that sort of thing. So it's not simplistic, it's something more to examine and see for yourself. We also need Virya to turn away from those inner distractions, the 5 hindrances of wanting, of hostility, of drowsiness, or not just drowsiness, but like the thick head, the restlessness and worry and skeptical doubt. We, especially in meditation, learn to look at them directly and kind of have this slight step away from them so we can see them clearly, and then use our mental and physical, emotional strength that we've developed to hold attention steady while we observe it. And in the Buddhist tradition, this is called I see you, Mara. So Mara is the metaphor for these hindrances in our mind. And we turn our internal vision and look directly at whatever's coming up and hold ourselves steady while Mara goes, oh, you see me. And hopefully Mara goes, oh, bye. You saw me, you caught me. Of course, this has to happen many, many, many times through the course of even one meditation session. But it's basically one of the qualities that's needed is strength to look at them directly. This may also be needed in our relationship with others when others are acting unskillfully. And how do we have that effortful courage in responding to other people's unskillful behavior? One of the ways we naturally respond is to go into the 5 hindrances. So particularly hostility might arise. And yet that is not skillful. That just drives things deeper into conflict. So Virya is needed for both our internal experience and for our relationship experience. Okay, so the other form of courage is more on the calming side of practice. And I already spoke of my view is that patience and kindness are particularly helpful in that area. And I want to quote the Buddha in describing the evolution of patience in our practice. Now, the language that's used here may seem a little strong, but take it as its ancient language. So the Buddha says, I find that for restraining the foolish, there is nothing better than patient silence. When someone has intense hatred and anger, and I would add greed, he is best restrained by patience alone. What the foolish call strength is really lack of strength. The foolish do not distinguish between good and bad. They have no way to restrain themselves. If I can find courage in me to patiently endure the foolish and inferior, this is called foremost patience and skill in patience. A weak person, when facing someone strong, cannot but practice patience. This is called timid patience. It is not true patience. Those with great strength have the freedom to counter those who harm them with silence, not reacting. This is called supreme patience. Weakness is afraid of power. It is silent because it cannot react. This is called fear, not practicing patience. The naive and foolish, those without wisdom, afflict others by harming them. Seeing the other's silent patience, they believe they are victorious. A wise and saintly person knows that patience is victorious. Thus, among the saintly, the meritorious power of patience is always praised. So that's a lot of words, but it may bring a memory to you of someone who you thought was wise and dealt with a situation in a way that showed a lot of patience and was kind. But maybe it took a long time for results to show up. So being able to approach difficulties with what my current teacher says, unflinching kindness. So it requires some strength, but it's determined to keep the heart open and to respond with care to a difficulty. So I thought we'd do another experiential exercise, which this time is to imagine yourself facing the unskillful behavior of someone who you perceive as not having as much worldly power as you. And I would suggest a puppy, a kitten, or a child that you love. So imagining you're in front of somebody or some animal who is misbehaving, and you know that you love them. You don't feel particularly threatened by them. Um, you want to be helpful. You feel that they are capable of learning. And the biggest threat that we have, perhaps, is that we would be unskillful ourselves, that we would lose our patience and be unkind in our response. So just imagining whatever fits for you in your life experience. How does your heart feel? And what is present in your mind? And for myself, I feel quite safe. I feel some kindness and calmness. And I'm celebrating that I can remain kind and calm, even though there's a difficulty. And I feel my love for this being in front of me. I may not have a solution, but I know what attitude I want to bring to this situation. Okay, now let's imagine this person in front of us has quite a bit more worldly power than us. We do feel a little unsafe, or maybe a lot unsafe. How does your body need to be? What is patience and kindness on their own enough with this person? Or do you need some other quality? Maybe you need to feel more energy in your limbs, feel more grounded, feel the strength in your heart, and the clarity in your mind that is ready to say a firm no. This behavior is not acceptable. I won't accept this behavior. If you want a relationship with me, you need to stop. And now toggle back to this unflinching kindness and patience. It's also available in the strength that you've developed. Okay. So a lot to work with there, because I think probably all of us have people in our life who provide us with challenges. And then I wanted to finish with a poem, and this is from this book, which is I've read from before. It's called The First Free Women, Poems of the Early Buddhist Nuns. And it's written by Maddie Weingast. It's not a translation, it's an interpretation of these early Buddhist nuns' poems. And the way they're written is the name of the nun comes first in the title and then some description. So this is Mita Kali, Friend of the Dark, which is on page 56 of this book, if you have the book. So she says, I was always smart. If the path was good, I figured it would make me even smarter. One night while meditating, I watched my thoughts piling themselves up all around me. My mind built a house out of all those thoughts, then filled that house. Soon it was a whole city, a whole world. Oh, my beautiful, beautiful thoughts. Who will look after you after I'm gone? I swear I could weep for all of you. My sisters, she says, she's speaking to other nuns, do you really want to be free? Are you ready to leave behind all your precious little houses and make your home everywhere? It's not as hard as you might think. First stand up, then walk out the door. So I thought maybe we could do that with our bodies. So just so we know what it feels like when we've said no, a strong no, and we are sure about it, and we're leaving. We're no longer putting up with this crap, right? It's not going to be part of our life anymore, and we're walking out. So just feel how that feels. Turning your body a little bit, a couple of steps, walking away. All right. So that's what I wanted to share with you this evening. I had a lot of fun preparing, so I hope you had fun, learned something through listening.
Would you like to take questions now? Okay.
So we should keep recording?
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll keep recording. So help bless the with you direct your questions, and then we'll summarize them for the computer. Mm-hmm. And then is there anything that you particularly want to pose to the crowd?
I'm curious about your experience. That's the first thing. I gave you lots of experiential exercises, and I would ask, did anything stand out for you in those exercises?
Yes. Do you mind saying your name? Yes.
Mara. I think the thing that struck me most was when you were saying, feel the courage in your heart. Mm-hmm. And I thought, that's not what I feel at times knowing in my heart. Mm-hmm. But courage, when you said that, immediately it was my heart that feels the fear and the upset, and when I need to feel courage, it's my head that has to speak to my heart. So it was almost like, wait a second, that's not where I sort of.
So where you find courage?
Yeah.
So we'll maybe summarize for the recording that our participant, I'm not going to use your name just in case, has said that she found that when I said recommended feeling the courage in her heart, that she noticed that that wasn't where she finds courage. She finds courage in her mind rather than in her heart. There was more fear in the heart. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the mind that needs to inform,
The heart.
and
Yeah.
calm my heart
Yes.
to
Okay.
be able to move through.
All right. So good. Thank you for sharing. And I wonder if anyone else had an experience about courage in the heart, what it was like for anyone else, just so we can know what everyone's experiencing. It can be different for different people. If anyone wants to comment on that. Yes.
I would say for me, the courage for me, as soon as I would focus on the heart, it would automatically go more to my body. Because I think when I'm not being mindful and not being aware, my courage, or almost lack of, almost becomes more of an emotional, almost like an arising from the heart.
Mm-hmm.
So when I can ground back into my body, it's like it doesn't allow this emotional. So if it's too focused on the heart,
Mm-hmm.
it's like it needs to be balanced
Okay.
with the body,
Right.
ground, like tethered in a way.
Okay. So another participant has said that she also finds that too much focus on the heart is not helpful. It's too much emotion, and that for her, rather than the mind, it's more the body that needs to have attention in order to keep it balanced, in order that she can respond more wisely rather than getting caught up in an emotional response. Okay, that's helpful to hear that feedback. And I think it was a little bit, I did help us embody it through the practice we did of the limbs getting energy and the ground. But yeah, so do you think it's possible to have a courageous heart if you practice, so that you actually maybe have fear, but there's also a sense of a fullness in your heart and a responsiveness in your heart, even in a difficult situation? I'm just wondering if anyone has experienced that.
I think courage is opening your heart when you feel threatened. So for me, that is the interpretation.
Yeah.
And that's what I drew from what you were saying.
Okay. So another participant feels courage involves being able to keep an open heart or opening the heart in a threatening situation. Yeah, so we have a variety of responses to those prompts, and that's how it is. And we might feel differently on different days, and through the course of our practice, it may evolve. I blew my top at my 5-year-old granddaughter when she was having a temper tantrum. I totally lost it. So that's not what we want to do, right? Yeah, I didn't get any points with my daughter either. So this is not about perfection, it's about learning, seeing where we need to grow.
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
So when we get dysregulated and we're overwhelmed with our mind saying, this is terrible, Phil, you're terrible. We have two ways to approach that. One is the body, and one is the mind. So it is interesting how people are different, but they say that when you get emotionally overwhelmed, you cannot talk your way out of it. That the verbal center in your brain shuts down, interestingly. And so it's not a matter of creating courage. You're sort of acting in a courageous way. And I'd like you to comment on this.
Mm-hmm.
And the two ways to do that are one with your breath, to calm your dysregulated system down. And the second way is to allow yourself to embody the negative states and the fear. So you're acting in a way that is courageous, but you're really just embodying what is present, to allow it to move through you.
Mhm.
And so those are two very effective tools to create courage in the face of a threat. So could you comment on how we can use breath to support courage
Mhm.
and how we can use our body to support courage?
Mhm.
I think the mind is really valuable because, and maybe not in the acute setting, but if we continually reflect how we create our sense of reality and self,
Mhm.
that works for us to decrease the tendency to be triggered.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
So could you comment on, because those are really effective tools to deal with the fear that we face, breath and body.
Mhm.
Can you talk about that?
So Phil, I guess I can say Phil because he's part of the team, has brought up about his own tendency of self-criticism and how that triggers him to feel terrible. And he's finding that using his breath and going in his body and feeling his emotions is becoming helpful. Is that correct?
Helps me to be courageous.
Yeah, it helps him to be courageous and face into what he's experiencing rather than thinking about it and letting the thoughts overwhelm him. So yes, I would agree, Phil, that's very, very important to be able to use those tools to meet difficulty within the body, as well as a kind of kindness toward oneself, self-forgiveness and care. And seeking support. So if you have a difficulty which feels overwhelming, it may be that you need to ask for help. Especially when you're dealing with people in positions of power who are just have more worldly power than you, and you feel confused or taken advantage of by them. Yeah. So really good. Yeah. Yes.
I have had many, more than a few opportunities to test whether I have courage or I don't. And the people around me comment on how courageous that was, or you have so much courage to have faced that situation. And my question is this: as I assess the situation, I think about the possible outcomes, and some of them are really awful. But it's not. I don't feel courage in the face of those possible outcomes. It's more that I'm almost observing me in that situation, but I'm making this too long. Is it courage, or is it my indifference about the outcome? Yes, this outcome could be awful. That one could be destructive. That one could be you're going to be seriously taken advantage of. But is it, in my case, it feels more like I'm just indifferent about the outcome. Is that courage?
I'm curious because you said other people observed you as having courage. What were
Yeah.
they seeing that you weren't?
I'm sorry?
What were the people who gave you the feedback that they thought you were courageous? What were they seeing that you weren't seeing?
The calm response or the calm non-response or the taking action that could be dangerous.
So they
Going
saw.
onto the tightrope.
Okay.
Those sorts of things.
Well, thank you, Gary. I think what you're describing is that you appeared calm on the outside, but that internally you felt a little detached. And you're wondering if that really truly is courage, or it's kind of pushing reality away.
That's, I think, you've
Yeah.
said it. I feel more detached from those awful possibilities, and so, or indifferent, but maybe detached from them. And so I appear to be courageous, but it's really detachment.
Or is it wisdom to not think too much about the future and deal with what's right in front of you?
Well, thank you for that.
There may be some wisdom in that actually having a lot of thoughts about what could happen isn't helpful. It's more important to focus on now what do I do? I mean, we may need to think about possible bad outcomes in order that our attention is brought to the importance of paying close attention and doing something wise. We need to prepare, and we might need to seek help in order to deal with the situation. But I don't see it as being unwise to not focus on the dangers. It's better to focus on what can I do in this situation. So maybe you're wiser than you think.
Perhaps.
But is he talking about the distinction between indifference and equanimity?
Yeah, maybe he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In that sense where I'm coming to this moment in a very balanced Zen way, but I'm just pushing it away because I don't have to face it. So there is a distinction between equanimity and indifference.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder, what do you think? Do you think, because that they say is the near enemy of equanimity, we confuse the two. Do you think that this is another option of what he's saying or not? And could you talk a bit about that, the distinction between equanimity and indifference?
Well, indifference, there's some degree of ignoring reality, I would think.
Yeah.
Equanimity is able to take in reality and stay balanced. But for all of us, equanimity is a very high quality to develop. It takes a long time to be truly equanimous in difficult situations. So we may have 20% equanimity and 80% indifference, but at least we have a little bit of equanimity. We have to be, one of my teachers constantly says, have a low bar. Notice the good qualities in yourself, and as much as you can, land on them and support them to grow. It's much better to do that than to focus on the weaknesses we have. We need to be truthful about the weaknesses we have, but also supporting growth involves nurturing the good qualities, not focusing on the difficult ones.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes.
I'm wondering if you could just speak to or even comment on, so the I think it's Roshi Joan Halifax's practice, soft front, strong back, that she teaches and responds, I think it was into her work around end of life care and the qualities of cultivating that, like that open heart, but the strength to, like, how do you see that relates to courage, or what we're exploring on courage?
That is a really good question. I have a sense that you have an answer. So
I never thought about, I love that practice, but I never thought about it in the context of courage, but just kept, as you took us through the practices and the body and the heart, and that's what we're talking about, it just kept coming into my mind. So,
well, I think you said it very well, that the practice that she is teaching is what I taught tonight, which is warrior courage plus the patience and kindness. So the warrior courage is more back, and the kindness and patience is maybe more front. That's how I am responding to what you're saying. It's kind of like being a parent. Like you got to have your arms around your kid so there's strength, but your heart is warm. And the older they get, the bigger they get, the wider that field needs to be, that you can stand steady, but be warm-hearted. And it continues. My kids are 40 and 41, and I still have to work on it. Yeah. Yes?
I'm not sure if courage always serves me well, because I may have the courage to tell my supervisor at work what's making me uncomfortable or whatever.
Mhm.
And I can tell you that doesn't always, they're not always very pleased to talk about that, even if you bring it up enough. I'm not sure it serves me to tell a couple of attendees tonight that their phones went off and it made me really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Because why do we have to? Well, if you do have to bring your phone in here, which I don't know, I leave it in the car, but if you do, I don't even know why you have to say, turn your phones off. It's pretty obvious we're in a meditation. But things like that so I may have the courage to say that, but that doesn't always serve me, because some people will just say, that guy is really an intense dude.
Oh.
Or to my supervisor, they don't really want to hear some of that stuff that's gonna make me work better or feel better, because not all supervisors, but I can tell you I've experienced some, they're just do your work. I don't really want to talk about it.
Right.
And
What's your
courage, I guess what I'm asking is, when I think of courage, sometimes doesn't best serve me. And
so what I hear you saying is you're equating courage to truth telling. Is that accurate?
well, courage is the strength, like you were talking about the strength just to move or whatever. I'm talking about the strength just to go into your boss's office and say, you know what, this isn't working out well.
Right, and also you spoke about a truth for you in this experience that you thought, well, it might make the person uncomfortable whose phone went off. And they already probably felt uncomfortable because they forgot to turn it off. And so what you're saying is there's a truth telling that if I understand you correctly, you go into your supervisor and you say what you said here tonight. It's the truth. For you, it's the truth. But you have a sense that maybe it's not skillful to always. There's more to wise speech than telling the truth. It's about other things as well, like being kind, being timely, and having a purpose in why you say the speech, that it's beneficial, that it may be beneficial. So you're correct, it's not always skillful to tell the truth. Sometimes it's better to edit ourselves. And, if we've had the repeated experience that the bringing things up with the supervisor doesn't help, then maybe we need to find another approach to the problem. That doesn't mean you have to be silent, but there may be a different way to respond that gets better results. Yeah. So for those of us who are here, for example, we all know that we should turn our phones off, but sometimes we forget to do it. So that's not such a big deal, right? To be reminded of that in an indirect way. But in other circumstances, if our faults are brought out in front of others, even if people might not know it was us, it can be painful. So when we're choosing to speak, we have to think about the impact. What's the possible impact on others? And is it of any benefit? How could I possibly say this with it being kinder? That's what I would be thinking about the question that you've asked. Well, courage includes kindness. And that's where it's really tricky when we want to say something that we feel needs to be said, but the other person's not going to want to hear it. That's the highest form of development of speech. And Joan was talking to me before we started about some of her training in that area. So I'm curious if you have anything to say in response to the question that's been asked about courage and speech.
Remind me what I was saying.
Okay, Joan blanked out.
No, but I just don't remember what I was saying that made you think that.
Oh, you were talking about how to respond to
Oh.
the audience and that sort of thing.
Oh, yeah, right. Sometimes when you are a speaker and you're taking questions from the audience, you want it to be a balanced participation and you want everybody to have a chance. But sometimes people will be overly sharing or maybe inappropriate in the depth of the personal stuff they're sharing, and you have to know how to politely interrupt them. So I was going over that sort of things about some of the training I've had and how to politely interrupt people. And it's very important to do it with that focus of kindness and friendliness, and because you don't want to embarrass anybody, but you do want there to be equality in how people can ask their questions and participate and say their piece and make everybody feel that it's a communal place and not anybody overriding. So that was what we were talking about earlier. So having the courage to do that, you really have to reflect and think about it. You practice it in front of the mirror. You say it a couple of times. You walk away. You think, how would that land? What if it's my talking to my friend, my best friend? How do I tell them without damaging their relationship? Or talking to an elderly person, like my mother, for instance. I find that replaying it in my head and practicing it helps me find kind words. I don't always succeed, don't. I've put my foot in my mouth a lot of times through the choices of words or not having that unflinching kindness. I love that phrase. Front and center is, and letting my ire overtake my, fill my heart and not having be this warmth extruding. So thanks for asking.
You. Yeah, so we can hear the wisdom in the words Joan spoke.
When you mentioned there's a subtle difference between speaking the truth and courage. And as I compare those two, particularly in the other participants' example, speaking the truth or not being courageous. And one of the ways that I evaluate that is, will I regret saying this? Or will I regret not saying this? And that helps. That's the wisdom part.
Right. So I'll just summarize because that was wise. A wise point was made here to reflect before we speak on whether we will regret not saying something versus saying something. And that's very helpful. Thank you, Gary.
I also think that sometimes I need to question myself what my intentions are, and not just my sort of obvious intention in saying something, but is there something behind it? Resentment, anger, wanting to teach the other person a lesson, or something like that. Is there something like that that's driving my need to tell my truth? And that's usually that's when I mishandle things. And so, but also there are other times when I know that I need to speak that kind of truth, and it's the right thing to do, even if the other person might not quite be ready for it. And so I'll have to be careful in how I'm putting it across so that I'm hoping that they will be able to receive it. But it might be still important. That's when it takes courage for me.
Yes, yeah. So we have another really important point that the most courage is needed when we determined we need to speak a truth, and we are not sure if the person's ready to hear it, but we know it needs to be said. Yeah.
Joseph Goldstein uses the word wait. Why am I talking? Which is exactly what Mary was talking about in terms of what is the intentionality for why I am saying this. I am saying this because obviously you did something unskillful, or I'm saying this because it's going to make me feel better about who I am. And if we could always remember to say wait before we speak, we'd probably get into less trouble.
Yes.
I'm aware of the time.
Yes.
It is 8:40.
Oh my goodness.
So I'm going to ask Leslie to summarize the
Oh,
evening.
okay, so I think I've basically focused on two types of courage, the warrior type of courage, which requires a lot of strength, and the more softer kind of courage, you could call it feminine courage, which includes patience and kindness. And we've explored that both experientially and through our discussion here, and I hope we've all had a good evening. It was wonderful to hear your questions in particular and your sharings. So thank you very much. It means a lot to me to share this with you.
Thank you so much, Leslie.